Hi, this is Amária Sweet with HeartMind Expressions, and today we're with Rumors of War. He likes to be called Rumors, and I've got a few things that I kind of wanted to go over. He's got a really awesome channel that I think you guys would be interested in checking out. And just kind of first to start off, Rumors, what kind of credentials do you have as far as what makes you an expert in your field on what you're doing with your channel?
Well, to start, greetings, everybody out there in Dreamland. This is Rumors of War 1987. This is my first interview, so I'm very glad to be here. Very excited that I have this opportunity. Thank you very much, Amária Sweet. I have followed your channel for a number of weeks and months, and I do love your content. I find it amazing.
Thank you.
I think I've commented a couple of times on it in several capacities. So that's how we kind of met in comments. So that's great. I think that, there's a lot of community interaction, a lot of communication that's possible, and a lot of support that you offer. So thank you very much for your efforts.
You're welcome. Thank you.
My experiences and credentials, I guess, I wouldn't want to say credentials as in diplomas or certifications, even though I have many of those. That's not what makes you someone an expert. An expert is someone with lifelong experiences, with passions and beliefs, and who puts a lot of time and energy into understanding and to mastering subjects, mastering these concepts, treats them with a lot of respect and treats them with a lot of dignity, and has learned in many different various capacities, different angles of perspective, doesn't just see things in the one way he's told, doesn't accept the world for what it is. Because the subject is very difficult. It's very challenging for people to understand. It's not like you can go to school and master in discernment of truth or disclosure of the SSP. There's no major for that. There's no professor who's gonna sit you down and give you a pop quiz on the instrumental figures of alien disclosure, alien interaction of the military. Like, who's Dr. Carla Turner? Who's William Cooper? Who's all these expert speakers, like who's Phil Schneider and what opus. Write me an essay about what you think Phil Schneider is deconstructed with postmodern education as the study of genders and Phil Schneider's understanding of the Dulce base. Like, that's the college kind of take of it. You can't find that. You gotta make that. You gotta be the one writing the book. I have a lifelong a fascination and affiliation with UFOs. I've seen them all my life. I come from an area that's right next to the NAS in Corpus Christi, and it's there for a reason. There's a naval air station in Corpus Christi. It's the only one in Texas. It's there for a reason, and that's because this is a UFO hotspot. My father and I used to be able to go in the backyard and just simply in 5 minutes look up and find UFOs. They are literally almost a nightly occurrence. This past New Year's Eve, while everyone was firing fireworks, we were able to go outside and see 6 bright orange orbs fly in formation from the bay over the city and then take off into the cloud cover. No one talked about it on the news. No one talked about seeing it. It was like it was done specifically for us, for my family and I to see. And it's like, if you look at MUFON in Corpus Christi, it's got hundreds of UFO landing encounters, people seeing, very large flying Vs, TR-3B types, every craft you can possibly see, from Area 51 or from the Nevada desert or the Mount Sierra, the Shasta Mountains, in California, these really big hotspots. You can see in Corpus Christi, it's up there. It's in the top 10.
That's cool.
It's like that in Latin America. Latin America, I think, has it. It's so common to see UFOs. It's so acceptable to see UFOs that people don't even really film them or make a big thing about seeing them. Everyone has a story. Everyone has an encounter of a third kind, encounter of the fourth kind type experience.
And now we're doing CE5s.
Exactly. So CE5 is kind of it's weird looking at it as this perspective, because how people are Dr. Stephen Greer legitimizes it. But we've been doing that for all my life, is going outside and calling UFOs, being like, hey, we want to see you. Like, you can come and show your,
That's cool.
do it. Like, you go naturally, like, oh, I'm stretching because it feels good. And then someone's like, oh, I've legitimized that. Like, that's my religious practice. And you're like, I've been doing it because it feels good. Like, I've been doing this is the natural expression of like what we are, like as a Latin American culture, is to see UFOs and to be like, yeah, this is like the world, the universe we live in.
Oh, yeah.
This is like, like I had my first alien abduction experience when I was in single digits, and I've had them all through my life. I've had MILAB experiences. I was a GATE program kid. That's relevant nowadays. A lot of people are talking about the GATE program. I was an original GATE member, so this is something that it's not coincidence. This is the purpose of it. This is not a coincidence. This is like the reason why I'm here speaking about what I'm speaking about is because I have firsthand knowledge of the experience of being in the SSP, being in these MILABs. But not everything that I speak about, I say I have experience in. This is just something that has, opened the gate and led me down this path. I do a lot of meditation and a lot of channeling. I'm very open and into that. I believe that's a very accurate way to get information, a very spiritual way to, raise your vibrational density and to really start pursuing, truth on an lucid dreaming capacity,
right.
and in reaching the Akashic records. Speaking with Ra, speaking with Thoth, these universal spirits. I'm a very liberal and very explorative thinker due to experience. I originally started my adulthood as like a very Marxist, atheist, conflict theorist, a contrarian type of skeptical person. And over time and many different experiences, ranging from psychedelia, leading down to shamanic paths, to exploring, occultism and esotericism, and then the military, and then understanding the 3D matrix by living it, for a number of years, like literally the grind, paycheck to paycheck, really trying to get involved with like living, like a regular, normal, accepted existence, but then seeing that it was actually, what they wanted me to do, but what the universe was really designed for. But seeing through it, these things are very shocking, very challenging, right, to the average person. So a lot of people
being thrown into things too, a lot of us are just kind of slapped across the face, like, oh yeah, by the way, remember this? What? So I think some of us are kicking and screaming, saying no. So, but it is good to see. It's good to see that people are waking up, because instead of being looked at as some schizophrenic, crazy person, people are starting to go, oh wow, there might be something to that. And it is true that I haven't seen you every single second of your life. So people can't say, well, you didn't do that because I was there, or this or that. Well, no, just because you might have been in the same building doesn't mean you were in the same room or the same timeline even. And that's so crazy big that a lot of us are like, what? How does that work?
Like, I think a lot of it's relegated to media, and media makes it disbelievable, like makes it something that's fantastic. Like, you see the fantastic and then you think, well, that is impossible, but it's not. It's only it's like the Wittgensteinian truth. Like, you can only understand it because it's true, and it's true because it's true, but it's absurd. Time travel and the reality of how time travel would really operate. Time travel, things would just change instantly to another version of reality if somebody performed a quantum like time travel action and you're in real life. Like, I think time travel is impossible. It's not. It's being performed all around you all the time. It's what we call the Mandela effect.
Oh,
that's the visual representation of what is going on. But people are like, no, because I cannot accept living in a world where this exists. I must relegate it to my imagination. Like, no, It's just like, and that's the thing. Like, no, like spiritual beings exist. No, that's my imagination. I'm not going to accept that as reality. Extraterrestrials exist. I'm
I
not
think a
going to
lot of
accept that as my
the
reality.
MK Ultra, and I'm gonna say it, of religion is, I
Yep.
think it is a type of MK Ultra, because with the ability to do the time travel, and the Illumidonkey is not new, the scamdemics
Hmm.
are not new, all of these things that have been going on for thousands of years,
Yep. Yep.
and people are thinking, oh, it's a little different, we've got different technology. No, we've been
Hmm.
destroyed over and over and over. These entities, these beings, these civilizations have been around for so long. Their advancement is so advanced. I mean, they can do
And
things
not
that we couldn't
only
even
that,
fathom.
but our reality has been so manipulated and so fabricated that
Oh God,
what
yeah.
we assume as a priori truths are just unsoundly not true. They're falsehoods. So we think such things as the laws of gravity or the way the solar system is created is set
Right?
in stone. It is not.
The
It is
sun
like
is a
that is
ball of
accepted.
gas. Nope.
That's on fire, and we spin around it. The year is 365 days long. We counted. Like, New Year's is January 1st because we said so.
Oh
And you're
man.
like, Christmas is here because this happened. You're like, Christmas is not always on the December 25th, not for everybody. That's just one of the things you
Right.
start realizing, that reality itself is just a bunch of fables told to children who
Right.
then become adults and who never grow up
And it's
from
sad
that
that
assumption.
people struggle waking up from the bullshit of that matrix,
Mhm.
when really it's just a construct that we can change with our own attitudes. Because, I'm human
Exactly.
too. I
Oh,
get aggravated, I get down. I'm not
mhm.
gonna not do those things. We all do it. But it's how quickly can you bounce out of it? What can you do to ground, to get back to center and say, that no, that's not mine? And how can I
Yep.
change this to maybe go into more of a spiritual path towards ascension, which actually leads me into my next question. Like, how does all of this that you've been, talking about on your page, because I
Mhm.
know you do have some things that you've kind of pulled, like where people might have a similar belief system in their Bible or their Torah or their Quran, and whether they're
Mhm.
religious or spiritual practices. What is the spiritual practice that you do that's really helped to ground you and bring you back into that center so that you're not in that jumbled mess of that matrix?
Well, I believe that the ultimate conflict of the universe is the self versus the self. This is a personal one-on-one battle between you and your shadow. And it really is who will dominate and be you, who will be the identity you assume, yourself or a polarized version of the self. And it really is, if you want to look at it, a great self and the self that could have been. And everyone assumes the matrix in life is this really dour, melancholic, depressing, defeating, traumatizing, ugly experience. And that's exactly what they want you to think. And that's, there has to be conflict. There has to be one true thing that you're not a part of, but is always like outside of your grasp. The constant the
Right.
constant other, the constant pursuit of joy and in fulfillment outside the self. That is what you have to defeat. That's like you're on your own personal journey for enlightenment, for nirvana, for dharma. This is a spoke on the cosmic wheel of consciousness, the karmic wheel of reincarnation. That's absolutely true. But just because you understand that truth does not mean you are not a Christian or a Hebrew or a Muslim. And the cosmic perspective that you attribute to Hinduism or you attribute to Buddhism or Eastern type like Taoism, like it's a personal, pragmatic approach to personal philosophy and deduction and the epistemology that you begin to use to really break down the experience of life. What is the physical experience of life and what does it mean on different vibrational densities, different elevations of the spirit? And really you have to start thinking every dimensional being. You are a ship and you have to have an anchor point and you have to take care of your maintenance and your physicality and your body and make sure you're running correctly for you to sail and get to a destination across a very chaotic ocean that we consider the journey of life, that we consider this, this pursuit of the paradise of a holy land, of the great nirvana, of the great, hidden valley of wisdom, the holy mountain. It's been said this great shamanic journey is, but really, you have to take care of yourself, and this is a pursuit of how well you're taking care of yourself, how well you are steering yourself, maintaining yourself, running yourself. Like there's the parable of, I'm not going to get into parables, but basically, like, I view my religious and spiritual practice as becoming one of acceptance of the truth and of incorporation, of syncretism. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a weakness of philosophy or an inconsistency. It's understanding that, this is a great journey, and like the religion itself used to be a very unified matter. There used to be a one world accepted practice. There's like a Roman palace for a statue of every god in existence at that time. Like this was a reigning value and belief system for the rulers of the world. Is you have to incorporate everything and gather the four corners of the belief and make it make sense together, like cooperate, the corroborate the stories and the legends. And that's it's very Roman. Like it was like the ruling philosophy of Rome, and Rome ruled the world. And it's not that they were weak. They were, everyone makes this like they understood this one wisdom, that together everything is strong, everything is more correct incorporated together than it is broken, than it is left to battle itself. So the
Well, and I
person,
want to make
the
a
individual like
point with
myself.
that really quick, just because I know that with what's been going on with all of the different scamdemics or whatever's going on, those of us that really are waking up to this, and I'm speaking, to the audience here, that a lot of us, yes, we're, mixed cultures. We might be mixed bloods, whatever. I'm part Native, I'm part Egyptian, part Caucasian, there's a lot of different things, and thinking about going back to our roots, what can we take from those different civilizations and unify as this beautiful melting pot that we have on our planet, being united, because that really is the key. When we stand together, just like that bundle of sticks, you bundle up a bunch of sticks, you cannot break that bundle of sticks. But if you venture off, nope, I don't like your idea. Nope, that's stupid. That's bullshit. We're going to all hate each other because my God's better than yours. Nope, my religion's. Nope, I've got the priesthood. Nope, you're a woman. Nope, you're a man. Nope, whatever. That's when you can snap each of those twigs and throw it in the fire. And so we really have got to unify and find the good in everybody. And it doesn't matter if your neighbor is pink or black or purple or white or whatever. God, just, find the positive. What can you do to unite? And, you might disagree. So don't focus on that. Focus on what you agree on. Get, unify, find that love, raise those vibrations.
Yes, exactly. Like it all comes down to your personal vibrational and your density, your dimensional density. And it's something that's the most important part, is to master that and to get that as elevated as possible to your potential. Not everyone has the same potential for spirituality. This is something that's like a cruel fact of life. But if you really think about it, you should be focusing so much on your own spiritual journey that you're not concerned that some people are going to be left behind or not be able to get it. It's not your purpose to save and to be a salvation. It's your purpose to understand you're being saved. You're the one undergoing salvation through healing, through attending. Like when you do yoga, it's not so that you can show people that yoga is important. It's because yoga is important and that you're doing it to heal yourself, thus gaining the benefits. We look at causality and we look at the consequence of actions without the purpose of actions. And that's the law of attraction that people are kind of practicing in error, because it is. The law of attraction is absolutely correct. But people desire the most ridiculous things, and they require the most complicated of lives, and they don't understand purpose and desire and practicality, and they don't understand that. So that's why the universe feels like it's in this chaotic flux of individuals unable to cooperate on even the simplest of things, or the simple, like, without even being able to save themselves, because what they're putting their energies towards is not the truth. It is the lie.
And it ends
And
up
they are
serving to
creating more
like
lies.
service
And
to self instead of
Mhm.
service to others. And you just can't,
Yep.
once you get into that materialism, you really have lost yourself, because really you're turning that item
Yep.
into your God instead of going within and
Mhm.
saying, what can I do to better myself to where I can reach out and fill somebody else's cup if they need that, or if they,
Yep.
you know, kind of like one of my friends today talked about a tree, how each one of us, as long as we can have our roots deep into the ground, then we've got a foundation that it doesn't matter if they cut you down to your trunk, you still have those roots.
Yep.
You can still grow those branches. And sometimes people will come along and break those branches off because they want a piece of that. But really, they can't take that away from you because your roots are deep. And so that really does hit that.
Well, even then, that's, I think, just the matrix trying to intrude. Like, when people think, well, if I do this, what will be the consequence of it? If I decide to become one with God, what will be the consequence? What do you think the consequence is going to be? You're going to be one with God, but that's exactly what, like, it means, that people are going to try to tear you down. People are
Right.
going to try to ostracize you. You're not going to be welcomed by the world. You're going to be punished by the other earthly masters, the demons, these dark forces. That's absolutely real. And people are like, well, I just want to live like this shining, beautiful one. I want to believe in the whole, once I start shining my rainbow light, others will shine their rainbow light, and we'll all just live happily ever after. It's the firemen come because they think they want to put you out, and that's the thing. Like, if you shine so bright, they will try to turn you off,
Oh, yeah.
and make you play along with the game. You can't swim against the current without the current constantly trying to push you where it wants to, push you where it believes is going to go. People forget that this matrix, this 3D prison of light, and this hologram is just that. It's a hostile entity. It is a inorganic entity. We as organic beings want to appropriate and feel like, we're in the aquarium, we're in the zoo. This is not our, we might want to defend it and believe it's like, it's good for us. We might have Stockholm syndrome, but this Stockholm syndrome is because we were so traumatized and having to accept this life role, and having to accept this karmic, penance. But it's ultimately goes back to ancient, very ancient understandings with what this life is. This life is a test. This life is just a temporary season of existing to understand a certain set of circumstances that will ultimately make me wiser and bolden my spirit. And, the life journey is that experience. If you want to get stronger, you have to suffer soreness. You have to suffer exhaustion. You have to suffer, the strain and tear of muscle for it to grow back. And that's all muscle is, a scar tissue ultimately. And that's what the saying is, like, oh, we feel enlightenment is a ticket out of pain. No, enlightenment is the ticket to pain. It's the ticket to testing yourself for what
Ain't
you
that
want to
the
believe.
truth?
Just like giving life, people think, well, motherhood is going to be, like, you're a motherhood is going to be the ticket to bliss. You're right, but you have no clue before it happens what this bliss means, what true
Right?
happiness really is, because it's going to come after a lot of suffering. It's going to
There's a
come
lot
after
of
a lot of
trials,
hardship.
that's for sure.
Yep. Well, think about, like, the Buddha. Everyone will think, well, the Buddha isn't enlightened, and why? I want to be a Buddha. The Buddha is a great thing to be. The Buddha is enlightenment. The Buddha is freedom. The Buddha is self-sacrifice. The Buddha
That's
is
true.
poverty. The Buddha is a relinquishment of all earthly authority. But, he's given that authority, when the bigger scheme of things, he's given so much authority because he's sacrificed everything of himself to assume this title. And even then, you can look at the earthly corruption behind him, and that's just the matrix trying to make you doubt. That's the matrix trying to make you hate. That's the matrix trying to make you pessimistic and cynical. And that you start seeing that, like, that's like the hypnotic trigger is when you think, wow, that guy's holier than me. He must be a total asshole. I don't know what he's doing wrong. You know, like he's up to something because he doesn't want money. He doesn't want to live for other people's, you know, praise, and he doesn't want their fake counterfeit, you know, virtues and things like that. Like he's not a hypocrite, so he must be a hypocrite. Like, you know, that's the kind of thing when we're shown that we're falling short, that we're not taking spirituality very seriously. And that's what the majority of the world is right now. It's not taking spirituality very seriously. It's not taking their souls very seriously. They don't believe in higher powers. They don't believe in anything but the most materialistic of things, of
Which is really
science
sad,
and of money. And but that's why they're in the middle of the street right now, burning down buildings. And you know, don't you understand? The Matrix wants you to do that. The Matrix wants to enforce itself on
the
you
amount of loosh
and
that is being fed on right now, just from that despair and that anger and that hate, and just really getting people worked up, because those entities have been starving since we've been in you know, this quarantine garbage.
Yep. That's what I want to kind of point out too, is that if we were to talk about the news today, like 10 years ago, I would talk about what's happening on the news. Like that's what reality is what you're seeing. Now I know, after 10 years of experience, that this is exactly. Look at the ants in the ant farm. They're really upset. Maybe what's the problem with ants? Like exactly, they're just dicks to each other. They're in a totally alien environment, and they don't understand that they're being observed and watched and judged and fed upon, and you know, and there's this huge theatrical sense of like, you know, captivation in life and society. Like all the world's a stage and everyone is merely a player. Like that Shakespeare knew about that. That's what, like, you know, I'm saying these are old traditional points of wisdom, when you're like, everyone is just captivated by total theatrics and is just feeding into the system and is just
and growing up Mormon, we were always taught, like, you know, Satan has been doing this for millennia, you know, so he knows and he's wise. I'm like, well, if Satan is that AI, or Satan is the whatever reptilians, or whatever people want to put Satan to be, the derp state or Illumidonkey, whatever, it doesn't matter what the label is, it's all the same. If it's dark, it's evil, you know. They've got some experience, they know, they wipe our brains and when we come on this planet and all of that stuff. And it's just baffling where we've gotten. But at the same time, I feel so grateful that because of this awakening, and yes, I know, you know, with our star families coming back and the interdimensional families and everything that we're starting to learn and to wake up to and remember, it's just so, I guess that just really gives me so much gratitude and hope for our future, that I think we're really finding out with this fire who really is on that path of, are you going to really do this with service to others, or are you just going to become one of those ant farm victims that's just going to fall away and have to recycle again because it was too hard? It's kind of where we're at this point.
You can say every generation has that moment, but every individual has that moment, regardless of generation and regardless of circumstance. This is just a constant test. Like everything is just a constant test, and it's done on higher dimensions on down. It comes from the very top on down, like the will of God directly down. You know, like this is exactly what people say at the end times and everything, and they think that there'll be this independent observer inside the end times. Like, oh, isn't the apocalypse crazy? That's the point of the apocalypse, is to drive you crazy. It's to, you know, really your fabric of reality starts becoming tested and destroyed because it's judged and it's deemed unworthy of existence. And that's the whole thing, is put your faith in any worldly system and it's doomed. Because that's the world. The world is a material, self-recycling, you know, Ouroboros of carbon that is constantly devouring itself and regenerating in kind. And it's something that's, you know, people call it the beast system, but they're, you know, that's a very radicalized way of saying it, is saying that like, oh, we need to fight it tooth and nail. You're part of it, as you know, your fight against it feeds it. You know what I'm saying? Like your embrace of it, your acceptance of it as an enemy validates it even more. One has to relinquish and really start letting go. Because like, think about the world as an anchor, and you're trying to float to the surface. You're trying to, you know, really get some air. You got to let go of any weight, and ultimately it'll be, you know, the body. It comes down to a very personalized, physical, like, this is your life and death situation. And anyone's individual journey to wisdom, enlightenment, nirvana will come down to like an adventurer, like, you know, like a hero's journey, where they will ultimately fight their shadow selves, whether it be drug addiction, whether it be poverty, whether it be family issues, whether it be, you know, past traumas, or you know, conflicts with the self and society. Like, you were a Mormon. You said a lot of Mormons, their main arch nemesis is the Mormon faith, is the Mormon religion, is being the identity of being Mormon itself. That is their big test.
It's really sad
how they live with
because
that.
when you actually think about the creation of the church, it was made by a 33rd degree Mason, and understanding the only way to become a 33rd degree Mason is by blood sacrifice. That's the adrenochrome that we're talking about. So that Joseph Smith, who was a pedophile, I mean, you look at the Fanny Alger stuff, and, you know, just getting in a little bit of religion here. Some people are going to be offended by this. I'm sorry. I woke up.
That was back when it didn't even matter.
It's crazy.
That was back when pedophilia was accepted. You could marry a 9-year-old and just be like, hey, I made her a woman. And you're like,
so sad.
Like, Joseph Smith was not accepted, though, by mainstream society. Joseph Smith and the Mormons were persecuted and chased out of many, many communities. That, like, it was weird even back then. People thought that was radical and taboo. He was like,
well,
the
you
American
actually
Taliban.
Look at the historical records, which a brother of mine worked in that records department. There's so many different accounts of things that they finally put in the book that it's like, you can't do this. If it was really truth, it would have been wham bam, here it is. But you can't be hurting people and controlling people and using misogyny or racism or bigotry or anything like that to say, we're going to control this group because they're not following God. That just goes back to the Crusades in another shitstorm. And I don't care if you call it Mormon or Catholic or whatever you want to do. It all comes from the same
isn't
beast.
That the purpose of Masonic? Isn't that the purpose of the Freemasons? Isn't that the purpose of all the Masonic tasks, is to recreate the Temple of Solomon, to recreate,
I think it is,
the great system of the beast, the great matrix that was created by demons?
Right. Well, and having been through the temple and knowing people that were also through both, not only Mormon, but Masonic temples, it's the same, basically the same, what do you call it? Ritual. It's the same rite, same ritual, same whatever you want to call it.
Same exact thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Different colors, a couple different twists of words.
I was going to join the Freemasons back in, because I've only really been an adult for like 15 years, right? Let's just say that. Like, my father was a Freemason, but I've only been an adult for like 15 years. Since 2005, I turned 18. I'm 33 now. You know, a solid 15-year chunk. Discounting military service, which was enlisted, and my college education, I've really only been out of really organized, indoctrinating type systems of belief and knowledge. And it's like, besides having to go to class and pass the test to get the grade, to get the diploma, that kind of mindset, to, you know, do what you're told because this is written in blood, and, you know, you have to perform this task to your best of abilities as we train you by the book, like, you know, authority is God type thing, since 2014, right? Wow. And in that time, I was thinking, but where do I belong? Because I'm an intellectual, I have the sensitivity of spirituality. The most mainstream thing, if you're a spiritual person, if you want to go down a shamanic journey, is the Masons, is the Freemasonry organizations, is these secret brotherhoods. That's where people suggest you go. If you have any kind of a desire to understand Gnostic belief or truth, you join, like, you know, one like the Yo-Yo, or like or you join the Hermetic order of, like, you know, the Golden Dawn or Freemasonry, you know. And so I was thinking about co-masonry, because that's the intergender, like, you like co-ed, like men and women can become co-masons. It's French, and they're all over the place, but everyone has that same exact ritual. Everyone has that same
it's
exact,
so crazy,
spiritual initiation.
Yep.
It's the mystery schools,
Yep.
ancient mystery Bill Cooper talks in length. He exposes it all. He talks in length about the true ancient Egyptian schools of magic, the ancient Sumerian and Babylonian Anunnaki rituals of Osiris and Horus, and this great cosmic. It's not new. This is what's accepted, and you're right. Like the Masons are Freemasons, are Mormons, as Mormons are Freemasons, as is the CIA.
Oh yeah.
Is the
They love
FBI, and
recruiting. Love
that's what
the
I'm saying.
FBI and the CIA absolutely love returned Mormon missionaries. Absolutely love them because they're so well trained to be robots. And I was one of those
Yes,
robots. I went on the mission. I did all of that. And yeah, you have the blinders on so much that you're so zealous about what you're doing. Everyone else is
and guess
wrong.
what?
You're the only one
The
right. And it's like, whoa, the ego
and
is
that's
just,
the U.S. Navy. That's the U.S. Navy. That's the corporate workforce.
yep,
That's the SSP. That's higher echelons of government. That's the parliamentary congressional system. That's the executive
absolutely.
branch. That's the president. Free Masonic rituals and orders and rites. If you understand this one concept, it's as above, so below.
Right.
Literally every system of authority mimics and recreates the same system of initiation, neophyte, master, worshipful master, and
Keeping that
whatever
slavery
grandmaster,
going.
dragon, whatever they call it. Yeah, and so mote it be, as they say. That's the thing. Like it's a spell. It's a magical initiation. It's a spiritual type thing. And when you start looking at the spiritual world, it resembles Freemasonry too. Exactly. You're like, you get out of one realm and the next dimension is the same thing. Astral High Command, same thing. These Masonic, what would be recognized as Masonic, things like, the same practices, the same authorities, the same amount of secrecy, the same philosophies of justification for action,
Right.
and it's all of that intelligent architecture, and because like I said, it's not just because they build their lodges that way. They built the world that way. The world is a gigantic Masonic lodge,
It really is.
and you can resist it all you want, but that's the Matrix, and that's exactly when you try to convince people that the Matrix is real. Like, have you ever watched? There's a new show on I forget what show, Showtime, I think, but it's Lodge 49.
I haven't.
There's a lot of disclosure. There's a
Oh,
lot of disclosure now on mainstream media. There's a lot of disclosure now about these things. But it basically shows how anybody, any nobody can one day achieve spiritual apotheosis because they are contacted by the Matrix itself, and thus magical, miraculous occurrences start happening, pushing them to joining spiritual organizations that are basically the Freemasons,
creating
regardless
profits.
of what it is in the show. Exactly. And start communing with other individuals, because this is all a hologram. This is all ultimate. Like you said, like once you understand the secret workings behind everything, of course, people are moved like pawns in chess. People are moved like, players in a video game. It's just literally you might think you have freedom. You might think it's an open world of endless possibilities, but you're on a rail system that's just pushing you along through experiences that they've already deemed you necessary to have. Like, you might think your relationships are very organic and very serendipitous, or very, the proof of a chaotic universe, but it's not. It's as deliberate as a chemical reaction.
Yeah.
It's as deliberate as they want you to reach a certain destination, so they'll make it happen. Because they understand the mathematics behind it. They understand there's a science behind this, like the occult sciences. They understand this generationally, while everyone else is kept purposefully ignorant. And so it becomes something of, like it's a hypnotic thing. It's hypnotic that you don't notice it. It's hypnotic that no one
It really
notices it.
is. It really
Yeah,
is.
exactly. It's all mimetic. It's all symbolic. Like Confucius, this world is a world of symbols. This world is not a world of things. It's a world of symbolic meaning and representation of value. It's like, it might be wood, but what does wood mean to you? Like, type thing. Like what is your everyone has their own definition, but
Right.
everyone has the same definition because everyone has the same experience.
Which
But that's the same thing with
really
the
makes
SSP.
communication so important.
Yes, that's the whole idea, I think, is that I spent a few years in the workforce, and I did my best just to try to, match corporate culture and really accept that thing. But I realized that's a world without communication.
Yeah.
That's a world where your true inner thoughts are not permissible. You have to literally lie to yourself and lie to everyone around you, because that is corporate culture, is a gigantic lie. It's a giant artificiality. And if you really accept everything in life, from high-end sales business, culture, to religious culture, to political culture, as just a gigantic fabrication, as just a giant perpetuation of a lie,
Right.
then you really start thinking, well, that explains everything about the world. Like why there's a suicide rate, why there's madness, why there's poverty, why there's all this suffering and incompatibility, is because that's people unable to pretend anymore. That's people unable to continue, this charade. That's why I think when you really start questioning things, you open up a Pandora's box inside your own life, inside your own heart, where you start judging yourself very harshly because you feel like you're so unempowered, so off the mark, so fallen short of what your true potential is.
It can be really disempowering for a lot of people at different points. That's why it's so important to do the inner work and really just go head on. When you've got a trigger, go into that trigger. And it sucks. I mean, there's days when I'm still bawling my fucking eyes out and I'm like, what the hell? And you just get pissed off, but you don't want to hold that in. You've got to let it go and say, okay, what is this? If I can't find out what it is it even mine? If it is, okay, do I need it? Is it serving me? There's so many questions that you can ask yourself. And, any of the viewers out there, if you're struggling with those questions, like I've told many times on my channel, I'm a certified NLP practitioner. I do meditations. You guys have seen those. Just ask me. We could set something up, because it's such an important thing to do, that inner work. None of us are going to be perfect. We're all still on that path learning. Don't ever put somebody at a guru level. That is one of the stupidest things we can do, because then it's almost like we get into that worship mentality. And then once we see that person's imperfections, just like Marcus Aurelius said, what is it? I'm trying to think of the word. Familiarity breeds contempt. Yeah. And so rather than having that pedestal, just dialing it back and saying, this person has been going through some stuff. They just understand it a little bit differently. And oh God, yeah, they might have some things that can help me with my path. And realizing that those people that we might, look up to or whatever are just human too. I think that really helps us to dial that back enough that we can work with people and keep that respect of, yeah, they're human, but they're just a little further on the path and they're kind of helping teach me a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it really comes down to an experience level. Like you have to really kind of put yourself out there to communicate with others. And a lot of people lose, I think, I don't know, a lot of people fail that test because they want to argue, they want to judge, they want to criticize, they want to feel superior. And I understand that's a natural reaction to feeling inferior, to having an inferiority complex.
Exactly.
Which society gives
Nailed
you.
that. Nailed it.
Yep. That's, I think, a majority of the population of the world falls into this very contemptible, contrarian nature of skepticism and antagonism and sarcasm. And it's a very self-righteous acceptance of the status quo, because you're saying well, isn't the world so stupid except for me? Because I've obviously gotten it right already. I don't need to learn or change. I'm perfect the way I am. And that's the definition of narcissism. Yeah. It's not the narcissistic person has a lot of stuff. A narcissistic person is kept from having things because they're so proud. They're so arrogant. Like the typical difficulty men have with finding women. It's entirely because they're just unable to communicate. And it's because they're not willing to communicate. 100%. It's not a question. You can say whatever you want about society. It's literally because you just can't sit down and talk to someone and have a pleasant conversation. Wow. How radical of a theory is that you can talk to a foreigner with respect and mutual understanding.
And you can disagree without killing each other.
Yeah, that you can have a positive relationship with your neighbor and not have to be like, that's my neighbor, that son of a bitch, he's always
Right.
fucking with me. Like, no, you can just live your life and not attract that negative energy. You not call that quarrel. Like the Art of War is, I love that book because it applies to so many things. One of them is the only battle you can win is the one you don't fight, the one you
Yep.
avoid, the one that you can successfully negate. The acme of war and the acme of strategic thinking is not the ability to dominate and destroy. It's the ability to prevent a war through diplomacy and through political action, like to win a war without firing a shot. That is the acme of any like martial or masculine figure. Like the alpha male is not someone who has to constantly fight and dominate and abuse to show his power. It's the one that goes his entire existence just in peace with his own authority. Like
what can he do to protect and to gather and to bring together and unify and bring balance? And that's what I think a lot of people miss with that masculinity, is they think they've got to just put that fist down, and really you don't have to. It's, finding unity.
A situation I learned on the streets, like a scenario I learned on the streets as a taxi cab driver for a year, was instead of being able to defend myself from violence or from theft, have the foresight and the cunning to just avoid situations that would be dangerous to myself.
Right.
And that is the true acme of self-defense, is I can see through, like I can understand the world is a series of choices and consequences, and I can choose and have the strength to, create this reality of safety around me and not have to have it tested or defend, have it validated or have it, challenged by the matrix. Actually have the matrix work for me. That's the law of attraction. Is not to have not to defy reality by getting what you're never supposed to have, but by getting the true glory that is yours, by getting the paradise that you create and you deserve. It's not that I feel like, yes, I feel like we said before, the implications would be of hardship and of poverty and of asceticism, but really you're gaining the world. You're getting the true glory and prize that you deserve for your own spirituality, for your own ascension. The old you, the shadow you, thinks that's hell. Thinks that's the worst. The matrix thinks that's the worst possible outcome, is for you to be happy. Is for you to be satisfied. It's for you to feel proud. For you to feel, glorified, to feel like thankful, to feel gratitude. It hates it absolutely it cannot exist with that, like itself, like to show like, oh, the matrix is actually something that I can master by not mastering it, by not being its master. And it hates that. It wants you to have this constant fight with it. It wants you to have this battle, like that, like the idea of truth. Why is the truth community, the disclosure community, fighting itself at every single level, at every single point of discussion regarding semantics, regarding credentials, validation, like camp loyalties, certain does, fearing certain end times, following certain prophecies? Right. It's because the matrix is just leading them around like a dog on a leash. It's just making you follow all these rabbit holes, and it's like, I listened to Quantum Consciousness, and he said it at best, that the whole world's a hologram. The whole world's fake. It's just this matrix that like Alan Watts said, like you put your impression on, that becomes a reflection of yourself. It doesn't matter who did 9/11. It doesn't matter if that was an inside job. The fact is that this is a false 3D matrix, and we're all being led like dogs on leashes to feed off our loosh. Ask the real questions. Ask the real big implications.
Right.
It doesn't matter how many off-world colonies we have, or who was a pilot, or who was a not Waffen super soldier werewolf, DNA, reptilian, black goo, hybrid.
Right.
The real thing is that you realize that this world is a matrix. This world.
And what
is
are you doing about
creation.
it to make it better? How can you
exactly
make it? I mean, how is all of that stuff going to help you now to not just pay your bills, but how is it going to make you a better person?
What did you learn from it? What did you take from it? I
Mm-hmm.
understand there's a big shock and a big
It's horrible to wake up to
trauma
those things.
associated, wake up to that reality, to wake up to the reality
Absolutely.
that humankind is in this cosmic secret war, and there's all these different agendas and manipulating powers. And I speak about that because I find it very interesting, and I want to share what I think is truth, and what I believe is firmly the truth. Not that I doubt it at any level, but because the concept of truth doesn't need scientific validation. It doesn't need proof. It doesn't need a document. I'm not going to find a document, like a timestamp from like 1945, and be like, yes, this proves everything. Like
Right?
that's never going to
It's not going to
happen.
happen,
Like,
right?
no, this is a series of deductions. This is a series of theories. This is a series of hypotheses that are validated through personal memories, experiences, the Akashic records, studying communities, hearing other people's witness testimonies, and really kind of filing down what I feel is an accurate picture of the true SSP. But I feel a lot of people fall into the rabbit hole of personal experience. And my big thing with the MILAB experience is that I remember clearly VR. VR is the trippiest absurdity you could possibly ever find yourself in. They can recreate entire
Yeah.
lifetimes within nights. Like, they can pick you up from your bedroom, and in reality, it's for a nanosecond. Like, you just
Right.
phase in and phase that back into existence, right? They teleport you, but they can literally pause time, make you do a bunch of VR reality assessments. You won't even know if you're a man or a woman, if you're black or white, if you're old or young. You won't know if you're an animal, human, space being, super soldier, pilot, military officer, dentist. Like, like quantum leap type stuff where you can't find your true timeline. You're having to go through a series of tests, and this is repeated over the course of years. It scrambles a person's brain. It really does make you, like, splinters your persona. That's with all the MK Ultra splintered personas, the fractured mirror, the butterfly monarch programming, beta programming, all the different kinds of programming you're subject to. That's when you start, like, you don't want to fix yourself to any one of those timelines. That timeline was most real. They're all fake. They're all VR, virtual reality, digital simulations. Not fake, but they are all digital simulations. None of them is any more real than the other one. The same thing with life. Like, incarnate, no one's ever like, my past life was the real life. Like, this is all just filler. Like, this is all filler. And I wish I could go back to my time as, Don Juan. That was great. This is all just because I fucked up and I died and I had to come back a million times before I get reincarnated as a swashbuckling rogue seducing courtesans in Italy. Like, that's a billion lifetimes. I'll just wait it out. I'll go through the end of the universe, be reborn again, follow the cyclical flat circle of time until I find, that's the thing. You have to experience it, but at the same time, let it go.
Yeah.
Like, same thing as life. You have to experience these things, gather it, like, accept it, but let it go. But really, like I'm finding now when I make these videos, this is my way of letting go. This is my way of expressing it, of an outlet. This is a way of not just being driven insane with these memories and with these communications. And yes, I seek out this knowledge. Yes, I research it. But, like you said, there's been more work done on relieving physical trauma and relieving family trauma and relieving, like, childhood trauma than there has been, I think, on anything else in the psychiatric and psychological fields of study. This is what they say to do. If you experience some kind of grief or some kind of loss, some kind of trauma, is to accept the experience, but let it go. And learn how to define it, learn how to communicate it, learn how to communicate your inner feelings. This is really all you can do in studying the SSP, is not try to find a smoking gun, but to, really find out your own personal relationship to it, really find your own personal experience to it, and how it's affected you, but learn from it, because it was done on, everything's done for that reason of enlightenment. Everything is a step on the journey to enlightenment, and it's just, that's the reality we live in, is that this is basically a gigantic wheel. It's a wheel and it has many spokes, and those spokes all connect to each other through the timeline that we exist in, the materium, the 3D world that we exist in. it's hard to express, it really is. It becomes one of the most difficult things to put into words, because you don't feel it, you don't remember it in words. It's not a linguistic thing. This is not the logos. This is the actual, like, real, it's like, you can't define the color red. You can't define what chocolate tastes like. You know what I'm saying? But it's real. You have to experience it. You have to accept your experience for it. And that's why I think there's no reason for me to speak about any personal experience of mine, like in the SSP, because while I know what I experienced, it will make no sense to anyone else. It'll just be a subject of argument. It'll be a subject of continual attempts at debunking it. It'll be a sense of ridicule. And it'll be ridiculed by people who have no acceptance of it. And so it'll be like one of those things, well, if you're just going to persecute and prosecute this information, then, there's really no need. Like, I'll probably one day eventually compile my personal experiences, but at that time, I feel like it'll serve more to kind of narrate the importance of awakening.
Right.
I'll only discuss it in terms of awakening. I'll only discuss it in terms of what it means spiritually. Not fixate on the Roger Kramer's type stuff where he's fixating on his 20 years and back on Mars. And I understand that. That's the way to do it. That's the way to communicate the seriousness of this issue. But his telling of specific missions and specific effects of like the remembering of these missions and the what happened physically, that does almost no one any good. It really, I'm not saying anything about it. I do have a relationship with the SSP like speakers, like these people who came out and spoke about their experiences, like Mac Beer, both Rachel Adams, this current or good, Dave Wilcock, and their experiences with the SSP. I feel people are more fascinated about their personal experiences. Like it's more of like escapist fiction to them, like almost like the science fiction. And it's not. It's like people are focusing on the wrong thing. Like they're taking the wrong thing away from it, I believe, in the community that's focused on acceptance and regressing their own memories, their own experiences to get their own healing in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying anything bad about them personally. I'm not saying anything. I don't believe them at all, because I say I do. And they're a great inspiration. I just feel like when people look at the subject, they want to hear the fantastic. They want to hear this incredible amount of accounts of personal experiences. Like, oh, I talked with dolphins, and I was a hybrid super soldier, reptilian DNA, and they would throw me out of the spaceship, and I'd land on Mars and start kicking centipede ass. Like, that's what they want to hear. That's what they want to hear, but they don't want to really accept it. We're making people do this. Why don't we have peace with the centipedes? Like, why isn't there an intercontinental peace treaty with the centipedes? Like, why are we persecuting and killing innocent centipedes for oil? This is not right. The centipedes had families. Those centipedes had babies that I had to step on. That's messed up. Really Starship Troopers type stuff. Heinlein was really trying to communicate. Heinlein was trying to communicate the philosophical and the ethical positions of war and a fascist society, and the nature of humanity when it comes to conflict. And I'm doing the same thing. I want to use the SSP to communicate these ethical dilemmas, these presentations of reality as I see them playing out. And I've seen them play out, but people really just want to take away, how many legs do the centipedes have? Do the centipedes have claws where they spit acid? And you're like, you can talk about that all you want, but I really want to get down to the point of humanity has been bred to serve, has been bred for hostility, has been bred to conquer and to exploit and to proliferate. And it's, as I say, when I talk about certain things, I get requests talk about this specific type of Ashtar, or talk about Lord Ashtar himself, and it doesn't, you can talk about Lord Ashtar all you want, but he's just the current dictator for the Ashtar High Command. It's like talking about a dictator like Saddam Hussein, and that's going to be your lesson on Iraqi culture. This one individual who had assumed total authority and became a dictator. It's not who the Iraqis were as a people or as a culture. And it has to be an ethical thing. It has to be a philosophical embrace of truth, not just like, oh, who was this one individual and what did this one individual do? Like, I feel like that's another thing. Like, people aren't taking away the fact that to accept the SSP is controversial because it's to accept that the government has been keeping advanced technologies from the population that
Right.
we exist in.
That's more the
And we have
important thing
hardships.
rather than getting lost
Exactly.
in the storytelling, which, I like a good story like anyone else, and it's interesting, but you really nailed that. It's better to go back to, that center again. And now that we're actually getting to the end of the hour, but I wanted to let the audience know that you could actually find Rumors of War 1987. He is on YouTube, and he's got a lot of really good points that he makes, very interesting points. And he does focus on more of the spiritual aspect. How can you get back to center? Kind of he does, and I really love how you go into a really deep history of a lot of those things. Very informative.
Well, exactly. I try to talk about the subjects as subjects and not as or like, I try to talk about like a historical subject.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you were going to talk about like the conquest of America, a legitimate mainstream level, you would spend more time on the personal individuals involved. You talk about it as an era, as a moment in time, as with consequences, ramifications. But you're right. You can find me on YouTube. I'm operating primarily on there. I have a few videos on BitChute and Library. But to be honest, every YouTube alternative has a very small audience and is very difficult to navigate. And it's just, I recommend catching the videos on YouTube. All the information's on there. And you find it, Rumors of War 1987, the picture of Fox Mulder is the icon. Like I said, yeah, I try to talk about things on a full spectrum level. I try to talk about things consistent on a level basis. I try to post a video every day on the weekdays. That's not going to stop, and I'm trying to cover as much material as possible on a daily basis, like a semi-daily basis of it, with any kind of delay. So thank you for that. Yeah, like I will make more and more videos, obviously, and I just hope I reach as large an audience as possible with this information. Awesome. That's the whole intention of the mission of the Rumors of War 1987 content creator project, is to really commit to expressing myself, really commit to expressing what I think is the truth of this matter, what the truth of the SSP. I know that we dealt with a lot of spirituality here, and we deal with a lot of spirituality in this conversation. Really, my videos are more about, the SSP and how that is the key, a gateway to understanding truth, questioning reality, really starting to recapture a lost greatness and a lost glory that I think humanity has had and humanity currently has, but is kind of from a classified way. And a lot is starting to be withheld from you, and that really the world is totally unbelievably great, and the wonders of this universe are greater than anything you can wildly dream, like your wildest dreams. And that it's up to you to really accept that. It's up to you to really embrace, instead of like arguing and finding the petty differences and squabbles and skepticisms and stuff. But I'll talk about other things too eventually in time, but I just have so much material for the SSP that I can imagine making hundreds of videos on the subject and not having any kind of fatigue to the matter.
There you go.
I hope to become more active in the community. I hope to become interactive. Like, I hope to interact with a lot more people. I hope this is like, the first of many interviews, hopefully. And I hope the audience can interact with me too. Like, I hope that people in this community, people with questions, people with experiences can reach out, and I'll really discuss anything with them. I'll give my honest opinion about them. I think there needs to be a lot more support. I think there needs to be support with people who are experts in this field, who don't treat it as, like you said, schizophrenia, or treat it as delusions of grandeur, who don't treat it as like a call for help or attention, but really can I hope to start a Discord page and like a Discord chat room, and really have people be able to you know, come forward with their stories and to help and support one another, provide assistance wherever they can, whether it be like suggesting of meditation techniques, light work, you know, Reiki healing, tarot card readings, astrological, you know, chart creation, things like that. Like a really like a safe space, like a really like, you know, like a little sanctuary that people can come to and really have questions answered and things explained to them without fear of judgment, without fear of ridicule. I'm a big fan of that interconnectivity that the internet brings, but I feel like it's totally been invaded and taken over. Trolls, paid agitators,
Yeah.
people who have the most negative and hostile intentions in their hearts. Like these, like this is the playground of demons. Really, like the internet really can be like your worst nightmare. People will attack you. People will, you know, like viciously basically like assault you, invade your privacy just because you've affiliated with something or you've expressed yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like, you know, like I'll try to moderate my comments and everything. I'll try to keep it a very
Right.
positive and enlightened area, you know, a enlightened safe spot, like a little neck
Right.
of the
Which
woods
I
where people
really
can
like
come.
that. I like that
Yeah.
because I know there are a few, there's a couple groups on Discord, which is really cool. And then I think do that, you know, make your group. I do have one, just a reminder for those listening, Fire Feather Phoenix Circle on Facebook. This is a women's only SSP group or military abduction MILAB group. So anybody that, you know, you're waking up, you might have questions, come on over. Please feel free. Fill out the questionnaires. It is heavily looked at. Crystal she's the one that basically takes care of really researching people and making sure. So it is a very safe space for women that want to come. And, you know, whenever you make yours, let's talk about it. That'd be cool. You know, we could get something out there
Yeah, I'll
for
definitely do
people
that.
that feel connected to that. And just
Mhm.
a shout out really quick for C4OC radio listeners and Revelation 2 radio listeners. Any of y'all have questions, please feel free to come on. You can send them to me at my webpage if you want to go to Awaken, Empower, Thrive or HeartMind Expressions. You can always, just like he said on Rumors of War 1987, make comments there, ask any questions, and we will love to get back to you. Guys, thank you so much for listening, and we will be back with you later. We'll see you on HeartMind Expressions. Ciao.